Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tia, and amongst many things, I am a frequent traveler. We're talking a minimum of one international trip per month. I'm proud to say that I can be in and out of an airport in an hour. And so it's especially when I'm traveling with other people that I realize that things that have become second nature to me over the years are not necessarily second nature to everybody else. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was one video that explained the most important things you should know about travel as a new traveler, first-time traveler. And so this video is supposed to be that. I want to give you guys a few tips about before you travel, while you're traveling through the airport, and after you land in your destination so that you can optimize and get the most out of your international trips. So first of all, let's talk suitcases. Personally, I think that there is no debate, hands down, the suitcase that you should invest in, the suitcase that you should be looking to buy is a hard shell suitcase with multi-directional wheels. Now, your suitcase is gonna go through a lot. Nobody cares how much you spent on your suitcase. Nobody cares how you want your suitcase to look. Your suitcase is going to be getting thrown around, bumped around, and put to the test in really harsh conditions. So that being said, I have found that hard shell suitcases are a lot more durable. They're able to withstand all of the bumps, they keep their shape, so they protect the things that are inside them better, and they just last over the years. Add on top of this that hard shell suitcases are waterproof because, you know, your suitcase could end up outside in the rain while it's being transferred from plane to terminal or whatnot. They're easier to clean because airports are actually really dirty places, and you should always clean, like wipe off your suitcase a bit once you get home or once you get to your destination. And so it's a lot easier to clean off your suitcase when the shell is hard. And multi-directional wheels, because they're just easier to maneuver. If your wheels can go in all different directions, when you're going around terminals or you're running from terminal to terminal because you have a tight connection, it's a lot easier if your bags can go in all of the directions that you are going in, rather than being held back by non-multi-directional wheels. The second tip before you go to the airport is to have a digital closet to help you pack. Now, I made a video some months ago about how I cataloged my closet, and it's made my life easy on so many different levels, but I didn't really predict how useful it would be for traveling and packing to travel, because it helps you to stay organized, it helps you to plan better, and it streamlines your packing. Why? Because most of these digital closet apps allow you to digitally put together outfits so you can, see the outfits that you want to wear. And another cool function that a lot of them have is that they make packing lists. So my digital closet literally has a whole section for packing. I can name a trip and I can say which days I'm going. Then what I usually do is I'll brainstorm a bunch of outfits using some pieces, and I'll even plan which days I'm going to be wearing what based on the weather or whatnot. And then once I've put all of the outfits that have all of the pieces with them into my little planning, my app gives me a packing list with all of the items that I used in my outfits. So then this makes it really easy to just go to the closet, take the thing, and put the thing in the bag. And then I'll have my other packing list with regards to like toiletries and whatnot. Another tip for before you go to the airport is to pack hangers and bring hangers. What I used to do is I would take these pre-planned outfits that I made and I would put them on hangers, and then I would wrap them around the hangers and put them in my suitcase. Bring them to my destination so that when I got to my destination, I could just take out the clothes and put them in the closet. Very fast, very efficient. This time on my next trip, I'm trying an experiment. I'm trying to see if rolling my clothes will make them less crinkled, because they do get a bit crinkled with carrying them on the hanger, though they are easy to steam. I'm trying to leave my steamer at home. So I'm going to be rolling my clothes to hopefully allow them to come out of the suitcase not as wrinkled as they would be otherwise, and then I'm going to put them on the hanger and put the hanger into the closet. Why is this? I find on my trip, with regards to being just organized and spending the least amount of time on the logistics of travel, on the organizations of travel, I want to actually travel. So I don't want to spend a lot of time unpacking my bag. I don't want to spend a lot of time organizing my stuff. So what I do is when I land, I take that first hour to get all of the stuff out of my bag and into the closet or the space that I will be storing my stuff. and then I put my bag away because I don't want a big old suitcase in the middle of the room. And I have found that this hanger trip just gratefully helps with that. Also, because you don't know if where you're going, they're going to necessarily have hangers for you to use or have enough hangers for your clothes. I will update you guys on how it goes with rolling my clothes and if it really makes them less wrinkled. But definitely don't forget your hangers. It's a lot easier to store clothes hung, so hangers. Another thing to consider while you are packing is if you have a checked bag, I would put all of my liquids in the checked bag. I found that it's really rare, unless you're doing a super long haul flight, we're talking more than 10 hours, you're not really going to need the liquids in your bag. Maybe bring a lotion, maybe bring a hand sanitizer, but you don't need all of your makeup, you don't need all of your toiletries, your liquid toiletries that they're going to make you take out of your bag. To save yourself time at the airport, and because yes, there is a chance that your checked luggage could be misplaced, but get travel insurance. If you're really scared that you're going to lose your bag, which is, like I said, not super likely in the grand scheme of things, you can get travel insurance to be able to replace the things that you would lose in the bag. You may not know, but in airports, ever since 9/11, they have it that you have to take certain things out of your bag for further inspection, and one of these things is liquids. And it can be the bane of your existence because some places don't enforce it as much, some places over enforce it, and the most annoying thing is when you end up having to throw away some of your expensive, nice liquids, your foundations, your perfumes, because of the inconsistent rules between airport to airport. So what I do now at this stage in my life is if I have a checked bag, I put all of my liquids in the checked bag. I may bring on a little hand sanitizer or a lotion, maybe a mouthwash, toothbrush, toothpaste. But again, unless you're doing a super long haul flight, you're probably not even going to need that stuff. You're going to travel in the morning and arrive in the evening, so your toothpaste can be in your big bag. Definitely, if you can, avoid needing to take a lot of stuff out of your bag at the airport. As you travel and you get to know airports, you'll see that some airports are better than other airports. Some airports are faster to get through than other airports. I'll tell you guys this. In my experience, you should not be doing layovers in the United States, and you should not be doing layovers in the UK. In the United States, you shouldn't do layovers because you essentially have to go through immigration, collect your bags. I think you have to go through customs and have customs check your bag and then recheck everything in. You basically have to do the whole long process that you do when in your departure airport, also during the layover in America. And so that makes you lose so much time and puts you at a much higher risk of missing your connecting flight. It sounds like such a hassle to me, not even to mention that then, unless you're from a privileged few countries, you're going to even need to get a visa, pay and wait for a visa to transit through America. I've never transited through America, but from what I've seen, it looks like a nightmare. Avoid it. The flights might be cheaper, but I'm telling you, if you can, avoid connections through the United States. And the same thing goes for the UK. I stopped doing connections through the UK years ago, and it's the best decision that I could have made because it's the same thing. They'll trick you with maybe cheaper flights and maybe more availability for flights, but then you get there and you realize that one, the airport, specifically London Heathrow, is such a clusterfuck. It's huge for no reason. The signs aren't very clear. The workers aren't very helpful. I've only had experiences with rude people there, working there. And so I have never had a pleasant layover through London Heathrow. And the layovers are usually short. They're usually an hour, 2 hours that you have to run through that big airport. And then the liquids again, the British and their airports are famous for being the enforcers of the liquid rule of the world, and they have the strictest ones. They have it so that you can only have a plastic bag that is this big, and it has to be able to close with all of the liquids in them for you to be able to carry the liquids on the plane. Otherwise, they throw everything out. I don't know if they know that they're literally the only ones that do that, but it's okay. If you want to avoid a headache, avoid doing connections through the United States, avoid doing connections through the UK, because they have large, complicated airports. And if you're not like from the West, you're probably going to have to pay a stupid amount of money for a transit visa to pass through them. There could be others. Comment in the comment section down below if you are also a frequent traveler and you know of airports that are worse to connect through than specifically London Heathrow, but honestly, all of them. So you're all packed, you're all prepared, and now it's time to go to the airport. First things first, how much time do you really need at the airport? What is the truth? So they say that the benchmark is if you're doing a domestic trip, you should get to the airport 2 hours before your flight leaves. And if you're going on an international trip, you should get to the airport 3 hours before your flight leaves. And I think this is true. You're not gonna wanna go any earlier than that because most airlines don't open their check-in counters more than 2 to 3 hours before a flight. I think it's actually 2.5 hours. So you're gonna get there and you'll be waiting around the check-in area uselessly if you get there more than 3 hours in advance. It's true that there can be lines at check-in, but if it takes that long to check in check everybody into the counter, like they're not going to just close the counter when there's still 100 people in line or 50 people in line. Like the flight will just be late. I have never seen that a flight closes while they're still doing check-in. What typically happens is the people that work the check-in know how to do the check-in. They will check pretty much everybody in before the check-in closing time. And if you get there after the check-in closing time when everybody else is checked in, then yes, you will probably miss your flight. So you're not going to want to get there more than 2.5, 3 hours early because the check-in counter is not going to be open, and it's not going to make that much of a difference if you got there and you waited at the airport 3 hours before they opened or 2 hours before they opened. That being said, you don't want to get there any later because there's a lot of different moving pieces to travel. There's a lot of different parts of the logistic to consider, and say the computer system is down, or that day they're understaffed and so lines are a lot more longer. Anything can happen to waste time at the airport, and you don't want to be the person that gets there like way later than everybody else on your plane, and then you end up missing your plane. Once you're like last level, once you're a boss level traveler, you can get to the point where you're in and out in an hour. Like if I'm thinking about my local airport that is 15 minutes from my house, I can get there an hour and a half before my flight and not really have any problems because I know that airport like the back of my hand. I know how to move. Security will take me 10 minutes. I know the flight starts boarding 30 minutes before the flight leaves. Like once you know, then you can start taking risks. But if it's like your first time getting used to airports, it's your first time traveling, then yeah, you're gonna want to stick to that 2 to 3 hour time frame. Nothing more, nothing less. When you're going through security, another tip that I would have is to have everything that you're supposed to take out of your bags for further inspection. Have all of those things at the top of your personal bag. Whether you're carrying an open tote or a backpack, it's just easier if you only have to open one thing, and it's usually the thing that's you're carrying on your shoulder or on top of the carry-on. So you can just prop it up on the carry-on, open it, take your stuff out, put it in the bucket, and then move on. I see people struggling so often with this, and they end up wasting a lot of their time. They waste the people behind them's time. And something that, like I said, it's just in traveling a lot that I developed this process, that I realized that it's a lot easier if I already organize my stuff ahead of time and I just have it ready to be taken out at security, put it in the bins, go through the security, leave. Security should not take more than 10 to 15 minutes. And if you're lucky, in Milan, let me give Milan a shout out. Milan has these machines that make it so you don't even have to take anything out of your bags anymore. So you save way more time. I don't know what other airports like London Heathrow or Frankfurt or other airports that make layovers a nightmare are doing, but in some places you won't even have to take the stuff out of your bag. So my last chunk of advice is with regards to after you land. Now, there are 3, I think, main components to a trip outside of your home, and they are accommodation, transportation, and telecommunication. Once you have those 3 things worked out, everything else is just adding on the activities that you want to do, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. So I'm not really going to talk about accommodation because I think that's pretty straightforward. You find your accommodation and you book it. But I do have tips for the other ones. First, let's talk about transportation. You're going to want to do a bit of research before you land on how you're going to be moving around. Some countries have really good public transportation and you can use that. Some countries have Uber or Uber alternatives that are pretty easy to use and you can use that. Some countries don't have Uber or any Uber alternatives, and you should probably know that. So definitely research your transportation. I find that if the country has like Uber or Bolt or one of those like ride sharing alternatives, it tends to be the easiest because, you know, you can set up the ride beforehand, you see how much you're going to pay. There's not a lot of interaction between you and the driver, which is where you can get lost in translation sometimes, and it just brings you to your destination easily. But as I said, Uber and its competitors or its state-owned alternatives aren't present everywhere, or maybe they are and they're just like expensive. And so in that case, you're gonna wanna see if there's any sort of like public transportation and how to get around like that. So for example, in Italy, you can't, there's Uber, but it's different. Like it's basically like a high-end car rental service in Italy. And so it's always going to be more expensive than a taxi, and it's also going to be less available. So in that sense, like it's kind of like, what's the point in using it? But that being said, taxis are also kind of expensive. Taxis are expensive in Italy, and you know, you have the language barrier, all of that. In general, the airports in Italy are all connected to a train station or a bus, and so you can definitely get to your destination with, for the most part, public transportation. That's something that you want to secure and understand beforehand. Another tip is going to be with regards to telecommunication. So when you travel outside of your country, your SIM card is not going to work anymore unless you're like moving within the EU, where there are agreements so that your EU SIM will work in any EU country. But like if you're coming from America and you're not paying $1 million a month for a special phone plan, your phone is not going to work where you're going, and that's a problem because like how are you going to book a car if you don't have your phone? How are you going to use maps if you don't have your phone? So what you're going to do to solve for this issue beforehand is you're going to get what is called an eSIM. An eSIM is essentially a digital SIM that you can download onto your phone. You put money on it and it allows you to use usually just data. Usually it doesn't do calls, but it'll allow you to have data in another foreign country. And they're not super cheap, but they're also not expensive. And so they're great for like the basics of, like I said, being able to order a car once you land, being able to use your maps on your phone, maybe being able to use WhatsApp to connect to who you need to connect to. Definitely make sure you download an eSIM if you're going, you know, outside of your country. And another tip for the eSIM is you're going to want to make sure if your phone is compatible with eSIMs, if it is compatible with eSIMs, what eSIMs it's compatible with. And finally, you're going to want to make sure that you download and activate the eSIM before you land in the country that you're going to. My last tip with regards to once you land is regarding payments, because one thing that people really want to know when they travel is, do I have to bring cash? How do I get cash? How do I pay for things? So first of all, in all the countries that I've traveled to, they're pretty cashless, except for maybe Jamaica. Jamaica was probably the country where I saw cash the most present. Everywhere else, I've been able to just travel with my card and pay with my international, like US or Italian card, and I think the transaction fee is like 3% or something. But in places where this isn't possible, or if you want to avoid this 3% transaction fee, there are these apps, they're money sending apps. Think of like Western Union, but more modern. There's so many of them. There's Remitly, there's World Remit, there's SendWave, there's TapTapSend. There's so many of them, and they were thought of to be able to send money back to people in mostly developing countries by the families or people that are working abroad. And so for that reason, they have really no commissions, they have great exchange rates, and a lot of the times they are instant. So that's great for being able to pay local vendors or your local tour guide. You could give your local tour guide money on your behalf, and they can either give you cash or they can pay for things on your behalf. It's really great for, you know, even more ease. It's direct from your bank account, and like I said, it's usually instant. So I find that that is far superior to, first of all, let's say that the worst thing that you can do is go and change money at a bank. Changing money at your bank or a change de bureau in your home country is the worst and most expensive thing that you can do with regards to getting money to spend on a trip. And also, carrying cash is always a risk, because what happens if you lose it? What happens if somebody takes it from you? It's always best to not have cash generally, so exclude getting money from your bank. The next thing is, like I said, paying with your card, but like I said, that could be expensive, and in some countries that doesn't work. Like both in Nigeria and in Senegal, when I went, international cards, they weren't really working, and so that's when all of these apps became much more useful. I tell all of my clients when they're coming to Nigeria beforehand, download one of these apps and test it out before they come to make sure that it works, and it really alleviates pretty much all of the inconvenience with regards to international payments, and it allows you to not spend an arm and a leg when you're paying internationally. So yeah, you guys, those are my tips for first-time travelers. I'd love to know what you guys think, and I definitely didn't name all of them. I would love to know in the comment section, what is your tip for traveling that you wish you knew, but you only learned through traveling quite a bit. And yeah, I think that it is such a privilege to be able to travel, to be able to move. The fact that I can just wake up and decide within reason that I want to go to this place, it's crazy, because just one generation ago, that was not nearly as easy as it is today. And so I feel so blessed and privileged to have been able to get to this point where it's basically second nature to me, and I'm happy to share. So with no further ado, that's going to be it for this one. Like I said, let's chat in the comment section down below. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, more videos about my life as an international girl. And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I will see you in my next one. Mwah.